Hello to everyone. May you all feel welcome for today's study. As we initiate and started with some moments of reflections, starting to harmonize our minds, our hearts, so that all of us may bring the focus within, so that we can absorb better all the reflections that will be presented to us in this study today. With the blessings of the good spirits, our friends, the blessings of peace, of light and love, we start this study. Bear in mind that we are all students, that we are all learners. And here today we reflect about ourselves as immortal beings, as spirits, starting with the reflection that Spiritism is simultaneously a science of observation and a philosophical approach. As a practical science, it consists in the relations that can be established with the spirits. As a philosophy, it entails all the moral consequences that result from such relations. Our theme today be happiness and well-being. So we are analyzing ourselves, what could be the causes of our unhappiness and what could be the resources that we perhaps choose to develop through our own efforts, promoting happiness and well-being. We can even start from this point to ask ourselves, what does happiness mean to me? What do I understand as well-being? Because of course, as we are all evolving on the journey of evolution, but we have different understanding, the answers may be different as well. So therefore, we carry on with some more reflections. Understanding that morality matters most during certain highlighted moments in the life course. It makes it possible for people to give account for what they are doing by reflecting on the moral consequences of their actions. So here we are invited again to reflect about moral concepts, which I would like to clarify that our reflections are not based on moral theories, based on different cultures, based on human interpretations, based on theories which change throughout time. When we are referring here to moral aspects or ethical aspects, we are referring to the moral and ethical aspects which are universal, according to the universal laws, which are equal to everyone all the time throughout the evolution. So here, of course, all of us as immortal beings, we are blessed with the possibility and the opportunity to be once more in the school earth in order for us to learn more about ourselves and also to evolve. Evolving means changing, means learning new ways of being, which are more ethical. And as I mentioned, the code of ethic, which is universal. And we give you reflect a bit more throughout the different slides that we go through today, which are based on the natural law in the universe, which we actually bring within ourselves, as we all have been created simple and ignorant. And now we are already in a stage that we can learn, if we haven't learned, to use our free will. And then in the Spirits book, Allan Kardec, the French philosopher, educator, asked the Enlightened Spirits, what is meant by natural law? The superior spirits are helping us to understand by saying, natural law is the law of God. It is the only law that is truly necessary for human beings to be happy. It shows them what they should do or not. And they are only unhappy when they deviate from it. So in this question, especially by the answer, we are already reminded that our unhappiness is based on our deviation from the natural law. In other words, the causes of our unhappiness as beings in evolution is based on our limited or wrong ways how we learned to behave and to relate with ourselves and others in our experiences. And now we are granted with the possibility to, through self-awareness, to understand ourselves and also to cooperate in healing us. Happiness is based on self-healing. And then we learn also by the spiritual benefactor Joana de Angelis, when she comes to enlighten our minds, our hearts, and says, it is true that one cannot enjoy full happiness during the earthly journey, but through moral acts, each one can alleviate the afflictions that originated from unhappy experiences from one's past existences. Myself and all of us, we come from a very long journey throughout the different existences as we are evolving gradually. And we all bring our own shadows, our own limitations, our own imperfections, as we may choose the word, but meaning the same thing. So now, when we learn the natural law as presented in the previous question, that is according to God's law, is the law of love. So each time when we choose through our thinking, through our feeling, which is communicating in the universe, through our behavior, through our actions, act, behave, and relate against the law of love, we are really harming ourselves and delaying our happiness from within. But when we choose now, throughout every moment, to choose to heal ourselves and to love ourselves through self-responsibility, which means the internal autonomy, when I realize my own shadows, my own imperfections, my own limitations, and learn to take ownership and reviewing and understanding that we have different options now, then we are really promoting our references from previous existences. That is the opportunity that is given to all of us. Then carry on, we still learn in the Spirits book. Again, Allan Kardec, the French philosopher and educated, asked the Enlightened Spirits by saying, earthly happiness is relative to each person's position. So what is enough for the happiness of the one could be the cause of misfortune for another? Is there a common standard for happiness for everyone? That is a very interesting question, because of course, as we are unique beings in the universe and evolved in different levels, considering our psychological and emotional dimension, our minds and hearts, or reason or emotion, based on our own efforts that we did so far, then the second part of the question, is there a common standard of happiness for everyone, is really fundamental. Is there something that we can base, that we can relate for conquering happiness despite of our stage of evolution, despite of our level of awareness? And then again, the Enlightened Spirits are saying us, for material life, it is the possession of the necessary. For moral life, a good conscience and faith in the future. Here already we are receiving the instructions or the informations that there are two levels of values when we analyze our lives from a more materialistic perspective, which is usually pretty much based on selfishness and also on possessions that will be the necessary. And what is necessary to one may not be necessary for another. So as more as we mature, as more as we grow within the natural law of evolution, which is love, less we are attached to material possessions and more we are focused on our moral life, which is more to develop our higher potentials, the potentials of the soul, which promotes us in goodness and also considers our future. Where do I want to be once I leave my existence here on earth? As no one dies, we all continue alive. Where do I want to go? In which dimension? With whom do I want to relate? It will be with those according to our inner values that we bring. And of course, we are here in this school of learning in order to decondition our old ways of being and also at the same time, simultaneously, to condition ourselves within the new references that we are invited to do. Happiness is destined for man in this world as long as he seeks it, not the material joys, but in goodness. So again, we need to be seeking, we need to be willing to put the effort into to explore ourselves and also learn about our own inner dynamics, that whatever life we may be living, asking and inquiring and analyzing ourselves if we are happy really from the self level onwards. Because sometimes we may follow experiences from the ego level onwards, and that happiness is almost like considered like a child. But here we are referring to those values that promotes us goodness and happiness in the present existence and also beyond that. So goodness, which we choose freely to do, activate, it stimulates our new ways of thinking, also promotes our feelings, and also helps us to drive us towards actions, behaving. And then another question, which is presented in the Spirit's book now, says, people are often the architects of their own physical suffering. Are they the architects of their moral sufferings as well? And the Enlightened Spirits are teaching us even more so, because material suffering is sometimes independent of their will. However, wounded pride, disappointed ambition, and anxieties of greed, envy, jealousy, and all the passions are the torments of the soul. Here we learn again, differentiate from the sufferings from the material perspective that sometimes is independent of our will. For instance, I may be going through, I lose my job, which was not my responsibility. It's merely because the situation is changing, especially as we are on earth now through all this movement that goes on. And therefore, I may not have the salary, the income that I did have previously. And I need just to go through a period to adjust myself. I don't have much control of certain aspects on the physical level. I may suffer a flooding that may take everything from me, even my house. I may not have control of that. But when it comes, however, or internal shadows, limits, then yes, those sufferings we can choose to diminish as we choose now to re-educate ourselves, because that only depends on us. That will not depend on external elements, either people or situations. In any conditions that we find ourselves, physically, on a material level, psychologically, spiritually, internally, on a mental level onwards, we always have the freedom to choose how we engage, what we do, how we think, how we address those experiences which we are facing. And then Jung is telling us that thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge. That is a very important reflection when we are choosing to think, to meditate a bit happiness and well-being. There's no way that I will be really happy if I have still the pattern of judging other people from my inferior level onwards, because the judging process is already an evidence from where I am is still within my inferiority or within my shadows. So as long as I become aware and I make effort to change that, to become, let's say, my thinking will be more rational, based on the universal law, which is love. Therefore, I will also train myself in developing new belief systems. Instead of judging others, which is the extension of my self-criticism, I now change this approach in accepting myself as a loving being, as everyone is in essence, but is still imperfect, perfecting. And in that loving address, how we involve ourselves and care about ourselves, we also become more flexible in terms of other people. Much of the unhappiness people feel is the result of the inappropriate importance they attach to the things of this world. Vanity, ambition, and greed make up a huge part of their misfortunes. If people place their goals beyond the narrow circle of physical life, raising their thoughts towards the infinite that is their destiny, then the difficulties of human life seem petty, and foolish, like a broken toy over which a child weeps unconsolably. Let's see how much wisdom is in these references here. As more infantile we are, I'm not talking about the chronological age, I'm talking about the psychological, spiritual age. As more immature or infantile, more we complain about the experiences actually that sometimes we attract in order to promote ourselves. But when we focus or place our focus on what is transitory, then we probably are more unhappy temporarily, up to the point that we also become more aware of what life is, who I am, what is the purpose for me to be on earth. And in that way, my thinking will change to the point that I expand my knowledge, my understanding about the universal laws. As mentioned at the beginning, they are equal for everyone, everywhere. And we all can do that in this long pathway of evolution. The purpose on life, on earth actually, is to evolve, to progress within our consciousness. By inaugurating the age of humility and renunciation, Jesus elected simplicity in order to teach intimate empowerment as a unique condition for happiness. Here, the spiritual benefactor, Joana de Angelis, which is helping all of us to understand ourselves from a transpersonal perspective, she is referring to Jesus, the greatest psychotherapist for everyone on earth. He is coming to help us to teach the great path of humbleness. Because when we learn to develop humbleness, which is not weakness, which is actually strength from the self level onwards, then we will empower ourselves from the divine aspect, from our inner wisdom onwards. And that will favor us in terms of different choices that we may opt in the present, and therefore understanding that whatever we do, whatever we say, whatever we think, even if you don't express it verbally, that will bring consequences in our existences, either in this existence or in others. When we say consequences, not necessarily negative, as long as we choose to stimulate the values of the higher self, of the higher consciousness, and in that way, through learning to be humble. And there's no way to be humble without simplifying our minds and hearts, because we still are quite complex within the limitations and shadows that we inherit for ourselves, that we learned previously in your journey, that do not suit us anymore. And now that we choose to become stronger through humbleness, through simplicity, which is the pathway to develop the real love, which will develop real happiness within, despite of what goes on outside us. And then we have the St. Augustine, which comes and helps us also in our reflections by saying, humility is the foundation of all other virtues. Hence, in the soul in which this virtue does not exist, there cannot be any other virtue except in mere appearance. As we were mentioning regarding humility, here St. Augustine is also reflecting about that is the value or the fundamental value within our consciousness that is needed to be stimulated, so that we can also develop other values like self-forgiveness, like tolerance, like patience, like perseverance in goodness, like fraternity, solidarity, cooperation, towards goodness for all. And that is fundamental. Humility has nothing to do with what we learned centuries back, meaning be weak. Humility in the 21st century, according to the code of the universal understanding of happiness and well-being, is a strength that each soul builds within as we renounce our pride, or selfishness, or vanity, or rebelliousness, and choose to be more cooperative towards the goodness in developing humbleness, simplicity, humility, fraternity, as we mentioned already, and be more enlightened from within. And then we have Mother Teresa of Calcutta, which also is a great example of happiness and well-being as she lived her life on earth, teaching us that if you are humble, nothing will touch you, neither praise nor disgrace, because you know who you are. Humbleness is the inner wisdom for us to recognize our strength and our weaknesses. So whenever others may slander about ourselves or may criticize ourselves or things are not turning out as we wish, we will not be affected within, because we more or less know already our own weaknesses. We take responsibility for them. We choose to constantly cooperate in healing those limitations, and in that way we become more independent of our own internal shadows. Therefore, towards the external, we are also more independent. When she says nothing will touch you, it's not a proudful way of arrogance. It's well on the contrary, because as more as we heal our own shadows, our own wounds, we open more space, which results in more flexibility and adaptability within ourselves. And then Lao Tzu also says, life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates unhappiness. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally. How many unhappiness do we create simply of not allowing that reality be reality and that life flows through us? So what we need to develop here also in expanding our healthy values is be more resilient, more obedience in relation to the universal codes, and understanding, yes, there are things and aspects that is down to us to control and promote ourselves and renew, but there are other aspects in people, situations, and conditions which we actually cannot change. And in that way, if we are favoring our own happiness, then we need to learn to accept it and know the difference of that. And then it's important to reflect that the willpower is sufficiently strong to sustain the harmony of the spirit. Here, the Spirit Emmanuel is teaching us in the book which is referred here, Thought and Life. All of us bring the willpower within. The question is, I'm aware of that. I'm willing to exercise it. I'm willing to empower myself so that I harmonize myself from within in relation to the challenges which are external, which are part of our learning process. And he continues to say, it can impose disciplinary control over the elements it governs, so as to maintain them cohesive in the service of goodness. Each time when we may feel lazy or we feel more demotivated, that we don't want to do what we're supposed to do, either in our relationships at home, with our partners, with our children, in our relationships with other human beings, then we need to reflect within, or at least we are invited to do that. That is time, or is the moment that we are embraced now to exercise our willpower. I don't feel like doing it, but I freely choose to do, because I do understand that is for my own good. That is the way that we will start to think in order to promote ourselves from our own limitations, overcoming them, overriding them. Spiritual growth does not cease when a person dedicates itself to the conquest of the relevant values of goodness. So as more as we evolve and engage in goodness, be good with our partners, be good with our families, be good in our neighborhoods, be good in our societies, in our workplaces, in any social gathering that we find ourselves. That does not mean that our spiritual growth ceases. But on the contrary, we are all evolving constantly through the different experiences that we choose. As long as we are willing to embrace with this proposal of developing real happiness and well-being from within. But also it's fundamental to think that it's necessary to become aware of the values of the eternal spirit in order to achieve identification with oneself and with goodness. So as more, let's say, limited I am in my reasoning, I perceive myself more as a body, then I'm more limited about my concepts. What the universe is inviting us all in order to favor real happiness and well-being is for us to become aware that we are not a body. While we are on earth, we are a three-dimensional being. That is a spirit, we have the spiritual body, and we have the physical body. So my choices in how I think, how I feel, how I interact, what I choose to do or not, is based on my immortality, not on what is temporal, what is more related to the immortal values. So I choose to identify myself with them. For instance, learn to be more humble, promotes happiness, learn to be more resignated in relation to what I cannot change, and at the same time obedient in relation to what I need to do in order to promote myself, be more patient in relation to myself, in relation to others, be more forgiving, be more fraternal. All of that is helping to develop the goodness within. The firmness of the decision by the conscious of what will be done provides greater interest in the process of learning. Firmness here refers to assertiveness, is not imposition, but yes, firmness. Without this encouragement, finding shelter or working unfavorable. Of course, because we still bring, perhaps in different degrees, but we still bring demotivation, laziness, procrastination. Then sometimes that if we don't pay attention, we may lose the opportunity in every moment. When those old habits emerge, we may feed them instead of just overcoming them. So developing free will to be aware that I don't feel like, let's say, work in my inner harmonization, re-educate my thoughts. Oh my God, that is so challenging. Yes, it is challenging, merely because I haven't educated myself previously. But as long as I choose to do that now and train myself as a free choice, then I will not disencourage myself. Disencouragement is a poisonous swamp where life's most beautiful hopes are suffocated. So as more as we disencourage to evolve or to advance because it may be challenging or because I don't want to put the effort, then I'm also in the same time suffocating the elements of hope, the elements of self-realization. So whenever the old aspects within us emerge, let's develop the inner wisdom so that we can override them in the present and therefore move forward stronger internally. In the same time, impulsiveness becomes a fire to burn without purpose, often damaging the good works. As our theme today is happiness and well-being, is fundamental that every individual, as we are unique, that we analyze ourselves and learn to control our own impulsiveness, because through impulsiveness, we quite often may say things that later on we regret, or later on in this existence or in other existences, we need to go through hardships in order to learn. So be more patient, more tolerant, bringing ourselves towards the center of ourselves. At the same time, Joana de Angelis also carries on teaching us that systematic fear forms a field where weeds grow and destroy the seedlings of hope. If we are dealing with our own fear, let's choose to look into it. We are essentially beings of goodness and love within ourselves. Fear usually comes from our ignorance or rebelliousness. And as long as we are embracing the proposal of self-love, we may choose now to analyze ourselves in order to understand what are the causes of my fear. And if I cannot do that alone, I may go join a support group. I may go and search for help on the clinical level. But as long as I may stand up for myself to heal that fear so that I can carry on promoting happiness and well-being. Slander breeds uncountable wrongdoings, and laziness waives the destruction of labor as much as it will inspire foolishness. These two aspects, when they emerge within ourselves, let's be honest and let's make effort to develop the ability to think good, therefore to speak good with others and about others. And laziness, develop the effort to become more proactive, because these initiatives promote happiness and also promotes well-being in a long, medium, and short term, and long term. Violence is discussed when the exaggerated cooperation of the modern media is stimulating sick minds and psychopathic personalities to surrender to hallucination. How do we engage with the social media? Joana de Anjos, as she is referring here, she's right to say, and we can testify that here on earth where we are, social media is used to spread violence, to spread slander, and so on and so forth, to hurt people. Social media is the blessing from the spiritual realm, presented to us so that we can use it, promoting goodness, promoting solidarity, promoting fraternity, promoting goodness, using social media to spread thoughts of optimism, to help us understanding that we are all beings in evolution, so that each one of us from now onwards may choose to engage and relate with social media with more wisdom, with more thoughts, understanding that we would choose not to be part of those who are stimulating hallucination and the negativity in the world. We are here to promote humanity towards goodness. All of us can choose to do that. All of us are able as long as we choose to. The therapy for the terrible disease that dominates the world is love in all its forms. That is what the benefactor Joana de Angelis is telling for all of us, ourselves and all of those in the spirit who are also with us. The therapy to end the disease, we can see that this disease is quite intensive and very visible on earth currently. But there is no one to be blamed specifically, but we need to understand that all of us, as we are thinking and feeling beings, we all are cooperating either for increasing the disease of violence and corruption and so on, or we choose now to cooperate to heal the disease, starting from within, in actualizing our own things, our thoughts, or our thinking in a more productive way according to the code of ethics, which is universal, as we mentioned previously. Then Joana de Angelis is giving us some examples, if you don't know, love in all its forms. For example, fraternal love that supports friendship and disseminates hope. We can train ourselves if we haven't learned yet. All of us, that is a form, a way that we also develop self-love. And she carries on saying that another love is a spiritual love that considers everyone's interest in the social well-being. Spiritual love is the invitation for us to eradicate selfishness within ourselves. Because as more as we develop a spiritual love, more we also are more, our interests are more broader, not only on us. For sure, to develop a spiritual love, we also are reflecting here that we all have the need to develop our intellectual intelligence, our emotional intelligence, and also our spiritual intelligence. Understanding that we are beings, that we are evolving, we are immortal, we are inheriting ourselves within the environment where we are, and we are here to promote goodness for us, for our neighbors, in our homes, in our buildings, in our roads, in our cities, in our world. So let's start with that. We are all brothers and sisters in humanity. And another example is the Christian love. In active service that develops good works and spreads solidarity. Again, if we are willing to choose, we can already in small ways, but it's possible for all of us to develop the Christian love. Active service, so it's taking us out of the laziness or procrastination to develop good works. There are so many charitable works, organizations these days in the world which are initiated in general with people who want to promote the solidarity amongst people. So many tragic moments and experiences that we see in front of our eyes these days. And at the same time, we also see the goodness emerging from different angles, from different directions, from different charities. And the charities are organizations which are guided or governed by people who come from different directions, but the heart is driven already in that level of, let me go and help, let me go and cooperate. I don't need to be in front of the organization, as long as we help to alleviate the pain and suffering of others. And another example that Joana de Anjos is presenting is the love that understands mistakes is a copy of the love that re-educates, in the same manner that forgiving love promotes the love that redeems. So here is favoring this movement of expanding our consciousness in understanding mistakes, meaning that every individual is a unique spirit and a unique soul in evolution, and the shortcomings of others are the instruments for us to liberate ourselves from our own shortcomings. That is a vision that really helps us to heal us from ourselves and also helps us to promote happiness within and around us where we are. Disencouragement, harshness, fear, slander, and laziness are forms of cruel violence and the bastard sons of selfishness, which is in itself the author of evils which misrule the world. Here we are reflecting in a profound way what are the causes and the roots of so much suffering that we see on earth. We still are in wars, which is a very primitive state of mind. We don't care about the well-being of others. We don't care that we harm others. So here we have the opportunity to select in which direction we want to choose our thinking, our feeling, and actions. Although wars still are real on earth in the 21st century, as we are witnessing, we can choose not to go down that route. We can choose to engage in proposals which are available to all of us to promote goodness in the world. So, as I mentioned previously, if there is a disaster, as currently lately happened in Turkey, we can engage in many different ways, in a voluntary way, to alleviate the pain and suffering, understanding that whatever happens to somebody else, that also happens to us. We are interconnected through the law of love. So when we reach out to help to heal others, we are healing ourselves. Contribute to order and peace, using the verb to be happy, is speaking to help, is spreading moral comfort and guidance for equilibrium. Let's choose, each one of us, through the internal promotion, the internal healing process, through self-love, that we may promote order, that we may promote peace. Because the greatest order comes from the creator of everything and everyone, which is God. And in that way that we learn in the simple things in our daily existences, order, disciplining our thoughts, disciplining our emotions. And in that way, we also are cooperating for greater peace, starting from within, that we are more tolerant, more peaceful as we carry on exercising that. And then we still have the thought and reflection of the benefactor Joana de Anjos when she says, "O thought, protecting yourself against pessimism, giving off mental waves of sympathy, praying in silence." She's inviting all of us to exercise the power of our thought, of our thinking. But in order for us to protect against our own pessimism, against our own mental conflicts, we need to train and exercise positive, constructive thoughts, constructive, positive belief systems, and repeating them to the point that we condition ourselves within these new values. Sometimes it is a bit challenging because we haven't been educated in that way, and merely the challenging experiences teaches us that we haven't done it, but we can learn it from the present moment onwards. We all bring the free will, as we already presented previously, that we can empower yourself to override the old systems and also to create the new values that promotes well-being within. Here, as Joanna says, also praying in silence. Praying is a very good method in conquering real happiness and also well-being. When we say praying here, we don't mean repeating automatically words that we don't even know what they mean. For us, praying is the inner connection towards the inner self, the inner love, the divine within, so that we may talk in a loving way and focus in goodness, focus in well-being for us and for everyone, learning to be more grateful for everything and everyone, and in that way also connecting with those beings in spirit or spiritual guides who are always with us and maybe inspiring us to be more be better in our own, or inspiring us to promote us and inspiring us, yes, you can do it, go there, exercise, practice, repeat again. So we are never alone. We also are assisted by our good brothers and sisters who are with us in spirit, as we are here reflecting from a transpersonal perspective onwards. Carrying out good works, even with simple gifts such as shedding some light in the darkness, a glass of cold water for the scaring thirst, a piece of bread offered to the famished, a grain full of life in a fertile throat, looking at the future. Here again, we are presented with possibilities how we can also learn to spread love and develop more love, that love becomes the predominance on earth. It depends on what we choose every day. We can do better. And the first one to benefit is ourselves. And another example is when Joanna G. Angelis teaches us, each person can offer his best part, given the most important share, which in plain and simple words is love. Let's choose to love ourselves. Not love from a selfish way, that is not love. That is a lack of love. But love when we embrace ourselves from the essence, the sacred, the divine within. We all can be better than we used to be. For instance, we give a smile to our neighbor, to someone that we meet in the supermarket, that someone that we meet in the tube, on the buses, or with our family members. To be more forgiving is the best part of us that we are really expanding and developing. Simply words of love. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, is what teaches us Marcus Aurelius for many centuries already, and we still on the 21st century learning about this. Therefore, guard accordingly and take care that you consider no notions unsuitable to virtue and reasonable nature. The happiness of your life, mine and yours, depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Are we aware what we think? Are we aware what is the quality of our thinking? Are we willing to actualize ourselves, which surely all of us still are in need of? Are we aware that negative thinking, negative belief systems represents a negative quality of thoughts and therefore affects our emotions in a negative way that may feed our low self-esteem or inferior complex or lack of self-worth? And meanwhile, when we choose now to promote good thoughts, good thinking, positive, constructive, benevolent thinking, we are favoring the development of our high self-esteem, of our confidence, of our self-worth, and so on and so forth. And in that way, also developing the goodness within. There is no treasure comparable to the peace of mind when turned in harmony to the divine laws, as teaches Joanna de Angelis in the book Wake Up and Be Happy. There is no comparable peace of mind, of course. Our peace of mind is in accordance to our choices, tuning into the divine laws. The divine laws are the universal laws, are the universal codes of ethics, which are based on love. As more as we learn to love in small ways, even if that is the case that we are learning, but fundamental, more we are developing health or well-being or peace or harmony within. Who is not aiming to be more harmonized, to be more peaceful? The spirits that inhabit earth now passes through a selective test of moral quality. The good ones will proceed. The bad ones will remain in different spheres where they will improve. In this chaos where we are on earth, for some people may feel despairing, but that comes from a materialistic perspective which only shows life from a restrictive way on the body level onwards. For us who are reflecting from a transpersonal perspective, from an immortal viewpoint, that we are moving within the laws of immortality of the soul, therefore we are all here to testify within the goodness, therefore promoting happiness. We have this great chance. We have this great opportunity here now. And as it says towards the end, your harmony is needed since today. The harmony of myself, the harmony of each one of you. We can choose. Of course, we still have moments that we go back to the old systems, as long as we forgive ourselves and bring ourselves back to the center again. But it's fundamental to understand that we are not isolated. We are all interconnected throughout the whole planet, so that we may empower the force of goodness on earth. Each one of us, through our thinking, through our feeling, through our behaving, so that we are united by the enlightened spirits who are working in silence, promoting the goodness on earth, as earth is evolving without us, despite us, because there is a force in the universe which is called love that comes from God, which is driving everyone and everything forward, promoting us. Let's us choose to cooperate with them in this movement of goodness, as we mentioned previously. The ascension of spirits results from the incessant fight against predominant primitive passions that reason and intuition aspire to combat with the expressive resources of love, of work, of unselfishness, and the practice of virtues. We are all here to evolve spiritually, to ascend, to progress towards goodness, towards love, towards forgiveness, in freeing ourselves from the restrictions, from the conflicts that the selfishness can cause us, in choosing the pathway of humbleness, of solidarity, of kindness, of forgiveness, as much as we can in every day. And also be grateful for our efforts and the consequences that they bring in our existences, that we feel much more at peace, that we feel much more alleviated, that we feel much more happier, as more as we are loyal to our higher self in these transitory experiences that we are constantly relating to. And Joanna de Angelis carries on telling us that only education can liberate the individual, as it is based in knowledge and duty towards life, society, and itself. Only education. We are all in this educational process. We may not be aware. When we talk about, or when we refer about inner change, inner actualization process, or inner reform, in whatever words we may use, we are talking about a process that is referring to educate ourselves to become better beings, healthier beings. Healthier not only from the physiological level, healthier from the psychological, emotional, and spiritual level too, because we are integral beings, so that we reintegrate those values within our individuality and within the society where we are relating to, at home, in the community, in any social group which we are part of, and in that way being instruments of favoring the good seeds to flourish, to promote a society which is safer, a society which we can trust each other. When we learn to be honest on the individual level, when we learn to be good despite of other people, when we learn to do some good to others without demanding rewards or demanding be applauded, but simply for the mere intention of promoting goodness within. We bring all these abilities dormant. We need to stimulate them so that we become better beings, therefore happier beings, therefore promoting well-being. Then we have the presence of St. Augustine. He presents us a question which is very challenging. He says, what does love look like? We can even ask ourselves, what do I understand about love? How do I exercise? Now, apart from all the reflections that we presented today, he presents us in a specific way. He says, love, how does love look like? It has the hands to help others. It has the feet to assist the poor and needy. It has the eyes to see misery and need. It has the ears to hear the sights and sorrows of men. That is what love looks like. Therefore, all of us, in some extent, are capable already to express love, to exercise love, to participate in this changing movement that is going on earth, where goodness will prevail over evil, where love will prevail over selfishness. Let's feel stimulated to do our little bit which impacts the whole where we live. Earth is a school for apprentices in the face of imperfection and ignorance. Bear in mind that all of us are apprentices on earth. Some have good intentions and they make efforts. Others are lazy, causing difficulties for others and for themselves. Several are distracted and delayed. A rare few are worthy of praise, even though they are living in condition and reversals of fortune of their human condition. Here we can ask ourselves, because the reflections are helping to self-reflect, in which group I am presently, in the present moment. I am part of the some who have good intentions and make efforts to overcome their own shadows and limitations, laziness, and so on and so forth, because that is what drives us now, consciously. Or maybe be part of the group who are lazy, causing difficulties, because we are all interconnecting. Even lazy, I'm causing difficulty for other people. We are all interconnected in our families, or workplaces, or communities, or societies, even on earth and beyond. Or are we part of those who are distracted and procrastinating and delaying the self-fulfillment, self-realization, and the proposal of self-happiness? Let's carry on here then. Yours is the honorable task of facing problems and solving them. That is part of conquering real happiness, of overcoming infirmity and recovering health. If I'm ill, I will put the effort in to seek help in all the levels and all the dimensions that is required. And from a transpersonal perspective, as a spirit as I am, sometimes I may not be able to cure my body, but as long as I invest in recovering health on the psychological and emotional dimension, then we are really on the right pathway. Of struggling to reach inner peace in any situation in which you find yourself. People can be screaming at us, but we within can choose to be free. We all are facing challenging moments in order to testify and consolidate the values of the superconsciousness, the values which are based on virtuous aspects: humbleness, simplicity, devotion, persistence, forgiveness, cooperation for the goodness of all. Free ourselves in cooperating and destroying, in making others suffering. But now our task, our goal is to promote goodness. With imbalance prevailing everywhere, remains serene, or inner power, as we mentioned previously, through our free will. Amongst the noise of accusations, use your silence as defense. Ways to develop and conquer happiness and well-being. In the conspiracy of any evil, be the presence of goodness, even if that means through silence, through prayer, through forgiveness. We have always the option, through free will, what we choose to do. And the consequences will also be part of our experience. Never abandon the trial of faith, nor avoid the sacrificial duties, only because you suffer or endure difficulties. All of us on earth, myself and all of us, we have challenging moments. We have difficulties that we face, merely because we are learning. It's not in order to suffer, it's because we are learning. As long as we are in the ignorance, we suffer more. When we free ourselves from our ignorance through self-knowledge, through understanding the natural laws in the universe, which are based on love, and we choose to embrace that proposal, then we really abandon the sacrificial, we abandon the illusions that we may bring in terms of merely because I'm facing difficulty, I feel that I may be abandoned. No one is abandoned. We are all assisted by the divine laws, by the good spirits, by friends that we have in this world or beyond. Easiness, improvisation, lack are expressions that do not exist in the dictionary of the divine codes. Why is that? Because evolving, it requires efforts. It requires perseverance. It requires continuation. It requires overcoming our own shadows, such as procrastination, laziness, excuses, projections, and so on and so forth. But we all can do it, as long as we choose to facilitate this inner healing process, inner empowerment. The inner empowerment which Joana de Anjos is inviting us or is stimulating us or suggesting to us is based on the connection with the divine within, where we choose to stimulate these superpowers that we bring, called humbleness, simplicity, forgiveness, goodness, fraternity, solidarity, unity, brotherhood, those kind of qualities that she is referring to. Everything is achieved with great effort, training, practicing, repeating, up to the point that we consolidate the new ways of being, which we freely choose to, which are healthy, which promote happiness and well-being. The good man is good, humane, and benevolent to all, regardless of race, gender, beliefs, because in all individuals sees his brothers and sisters in humanity. The good man here is referred to the good person, that we all are essentially good as we have been created by God. But the seeds of goodness which has been given by God to us, they need to be stimulated, developed, practiced. So as more as we expand our consciousness, overcoming or overriding belief systems that previously served us but now are not useful anymore, as more as we are expanding our ability to love, we also will understand that we are all brothers and sisters in humanity. There is no reason for it. Still in the 21st century, we have prejudice. We still kill each other merely because people have different genders or different beliefs or different races. Now we are invited to overcome all this selfish way of conditioning ourselves in the past. No one is better because we are homosexual or heterosexual. We are all spirits who are evolving. In certain moments, we are within the female, the male, or experiences and learning through homosexuality, through heterosexuality. That is too secondary. It's all about the expanding the love within. When we talk about brotherhood, surely we are invited to learn to love ourselves. And then we also learn about sincere love, which is very important, not a false love that we say on the lips level onwards, but that comes from within. Then we learn in the Spiritist book, what does the happiness of good spirits consist of? Because here we can also learn and reflect how we can develop ourselves. And we are informed that in knowing all things, in feeling no hatred, jealousy, envy, ambition, or any of the passions that make people unhappy. Love that unites them is a source of supreme happiness. They do not experience the needs, sufferings, or anxieties of material life. They are happy with the good things they do. Here we have again the evidence. As more as the spirit evolves, all of us, more we feel happiness within the ability to promote goodness around us. More as we evolve, mature, more we feel within through the self-love process to also promote the goodness around us. Life most important, life most persistent and an urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Martin Luther King is presenting for us this question. What I'm doing for others? Real happiness is proportional to my ability to go out my own selfishness. Only me. Real happiness is related to how much we choose to do good to everyone. Everyone according to our surroundings, because of course we cannot help everyone in the universe or even here on earth, but around us, in our families, in our jobs, in our professional environment, in our buildings where we live, in our roads where we are, in our societies where we are, in our neighborings where we are. What do I do in terms of goodness for others? That is an important question. And then St. Francis of Assisi teaches the great lessons of conquering happiness and well-being. He says, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. As more as we give love in terms of respect towards others, in terms of tolerance towards others, in terms of forgiving others, more we are receiving inner peace and inner happiness. And in order for us to conclude our reflections today, again, we will be thinking with what Martin Luther King already taught many times ago, saying, the human being must develop for all his conflicts a method that rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The basis for this type of method is love. As we come to the end of our reflections, in order for us to become happier, in order for us to promote well-being, it is fundamental to love ourselves, to love others, to love life from a higher perspective level onwards, not from a selfish way. Love that promotes goodness for me and for everyone. The real values from the superior code of ethics, which is universal, those values are always referring to everyone, not only what promotes goodness or what promotes happiness only for me, but what is good for everyone, so that we promote more the higher faculties that still are quite dormant within ourselves. When we are reflecting about promoting real happiness and well-being, we are also talking about promoting health, integral health, health on our psychological, emotional, physiological level, and even on our spiritual dimension. As immortal beings as we are, as loving beings as we all are in essence, as we are coming to the end of our reflections today, we express our gratitude for this unique opportunity for us to be here together, ourselves and all of those in the spirit who are with us. Our gratitude for all of those who are more advanced and more evolved than us, that are coming back with the teachings presenting to us as guidelines that we may choose also to follow in the steps of our own evolution. Our gratitude for our time that we choose to reflect about such profound ideas that help us to renew our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors. Our gratitude for all the enlightened beings who are always with us, inspiring us, for us to take the opportunity to renew ourselves, to actualize ourselves, and to insist and persist in goodness, in forgiveness, in tolerance towards each other, so that we promote goodness within ourselves, around us, and also in the world. So with our hearts full of gratitude, we say thank you. And also we come to the end of this meeting. Wishing you much peace to all. Hope to see you in another opportunity. Thank you.